thank you for your time today.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Can I call you Sonny?
Sunny, yep.
Butch, okay?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
How well did you guys know each other before you went to space?
We've known each other for a couple decades.
Just a few decades.
A couple decades.
Is that right?
Yeah, back to our test pilot school days.
Yeah, so back in the 90s, we were both at Patuxent River, Maryland at test pilot school and then testing there. So we knew
So you weren't shaking hands the first day.
No. No.
So, Sonny, you were born in Euclid, Ohio, east of Cleveland. You grew up in Needham, Massachusetts.
Yes, sir.
You were about to retire.
Well, I was thinking about it.
And this is the call you got.
Yeah, I've been in the Navy both of us have been in the Navy for a while, retired from that and switched over to civil service and knew I wanted to fly in space one more time. And as a tester, both of us, was the dream assignment to be the first ones on a test flight. And I thought, like, what else after this? You know, this is really the cherry on top, and so I couldn't think of anything better, so the thought of retiring after this definitely was in the back of my mind.
Okay, so Butch, you grew up southeast of Nashville.
That's correct, yep, Mount Juliet.
You're both from the Navy.
Yep.
Did you always want to be an astronaut?
You know, I guess like any kid, I had the desire. You see all the launches, you think, wow, that's really cool. Like any, you know, probably 99% of the kids out there. But it wasn't something I took steps towards to achieve. But eventually joined the Navy, flew jets, got selected to the test pilot program, kind of hit all those wickets that were required at the time to be selected as a space shuttle pilot. And I thought, I'm going to give that a shot. And NASA said, thank you very much, but we don't need you right now. So several applications later, I finally wore them down. So yeah.
Okay. Well done. Yeah. I can see that side of you. So the plan was for 8 days. And I'm wondering how you prep for that versus a trip that lasts 286 days.
We prepped as if we were going to stay long, planning for the short mission. Our focus was on the mission, the Starliner portion of the mission, first flight, test flight, and that was our focus. But we trained for everything. Maintenance on station, science on station, spacewalks on station, robotics, arm work on station. We trained for it all. And we were prepared to do anything that we were asked of for a long duration. Again, planning for one thing, preparing for other. And that's not unique to us. This is what your human spaceflight program does. This is what each individual, the Army that supports human spaceflight, is a part of human spaceflight, that are passionate about human spaceflight, this is what we do. We plan for as many contingencies as we can dream up, because this is a hard business. It's tough.
Sonny, I asked our viewers for questions, and we got a lot.
All right.
Other than food and hygiene, I think the number one question, hair. There were a lot of those in there too. That's right. Sonny, you got some great
games
shots.
with this hair.
Nicely done. I think the question that came back the most was this. When you found out you were not coming home, what was your first thought?
You know, my first thought was we just got to pivot, right? So if this was the destiny, if our spacecraft was going to go home based on decisions made here and we were going to be up there till February, I was like, okay, let's make the best of it. You know, we, like Butch mentioned, we planned, we trained that we'd be there for some part of a time. So we were ready to just jump into it and take on the tasks that were given to us. So actually, I'll tell you, deep inside, I was a little excited because I love living in space. I love everything about it up there. I love seeing how the space station had changed since I was there last. It's rocking, it's moving. There's so many science experiments that are going on up there, and just, you know, honored to be a little part of it. You know, we hadn't trained for every specific science experiment, but it was like, can I be your lab tech? You know, what can I do to help out? That was Crew 8, and we had a lot of people at the time up there, and it was just like, what can we do to help? Because this is a little bit bigger than ourselves.
Yeah,
we knew it would be a little bit later.
I want to get into that.
Yeah.
Yep. What was your first thought?
Honestly, Bill, it's not about me. It's not about my feelings. It's about what this human spaceflight program is about. It's our national goals. And I have to wrap my mind around what does our nation need out of me right now. That's going back to, you know, when we're in the fleet and we're, you know, operating from the pointy end of the spear. We're an instrument of our nation, of our national goals. And did I think about not being there for my daughter's high school year? Of course. but compartmentalize. We've trained them to be resilient. My daughters and my family, we talk about these things. We talk about the fact that there's no given. This is a test flight. We don't know what's going to happen. We might not be back in 8 days or whatever the plan was. And focus on that, focus on the mission. Yes, certainly deal with the personal side of it, but I can't let that interfere with what I'm called to do at the moment.
So the Boeing Starliner was a big project. It had a lot of delays. That happens.
It does.
Did Boeing screw this up?
Wow, I thought you might ask that question. Screw it up. Space flight is hard. It's really hard. And we're using new technology to try to further and better ourselves. I can tell you the Starliner, as far as automation, manual control, and when all this fails, a system that you can still survive and get home, this is the most robust spacecraft we have in the inventory. There's nothing that can do everything that Starliner can do. And when you have such a complicated system with new systems on board, I mean, we look with cameras at the space station and it maps the station and therefore it knows its exact position. I mean, this is new technology that we're dealing with. And so when you put all that together, it's tough. It's tough as it is anyway, but rolling all these things together, it's really, so.
Butch, I can appreciate that, but this was so important, Suni, and so expensive. And they failed here. And they failed you.
I wouldn't really characterize it as that. Like Butch mentioned, the spacecraft is pretty complicated, and the way they've integrated all the different types of systems together is pretty awesome. Putting people on spacecraft and launching them into space for extended period of times, it's hard. It's not just, here, jump in, go up, and come back down. It is taking you to a destination with a rendezvous. That's hard. And there was a lot of work that was put in. I mean, part of the reason we were trained for the space station is because we had multiple years of working with the Commercial Crew Program and the Boeing company to, what is it like to put people in a spacecraft? This is, a brand new spacecraft. It, wasn't like it was flying a number of years. So that's difficult and that's hard. I would say, let's add to your question, there was a lot of testing that's required when you put people in a spacecraft. And maybe, there was a little bit of time that, the launch date was coming upon us and, you weigh whether or not the risks there, like, do we do the test or do we go for the launch date? What is that all going to add up looking like? And there were lots of conversations about launch dates and what testing and looking at the data, analyzing the data, whether or not it was an actual test or a partial test of some of the systems that were on board and weighing whether or not that was good enough or not good enough. So I wouldn't characterize as they failed us. I'd characterize as there was a huge team that was working together diligently to try to weigh all the risks of putting people in a spacecraft for the very first time with brand new systems like Butch was mentioning and seeing, how that was all going to work. And we had a couple test flights beforehand and things were, we learned things. We knew we were going to learn things on CFT also. It's part of the reason we did all that other training for ISS, because we knew we were going to learn things in chain.
Crew flight test.
Crew flight test.
Thank you.
We knew we were going to learn things, so we planned on we'd probably be there a little bit longer.
I just want to put a fine point on this because, Butch, you said we don't feel abandoned, we don't feel stuck, we don't feel stranded.
Right.
Could I use the word marooned?
Okay, so any of those adjectives, they're very broad in their definition. So, okay, in certain respects, we were stuck. In certain respects, maybe we were stranded. But based on how they were couching this, that we were left and forgotten and all that, we were nowhere near any of that at all. So, stuck, okay, we didn't get to come home the way we planned. So in one definition, we're stuck. But in the big scheme of things, we weren't stuck. We were trained, but let me comment back on this other. They failed you. Who's they? There are many questions that, as the commander of CFT, I didn't ask. So I'm culpable. I'll admit that to the nation. There's things that I did not ask that I should have asked. I didn't know at the time I needed to ask them, but in hindsight, some of the signals were there. Is Boeing to blame? Are they culpable? Sure. Is NASA to blame? Are they culpable? Sure. everybody has a piece in this because it did not come off. There were some shortcomings in tests, shortcomings in preparation that we did not foresee. So yeah, could you point fingers? I don't want to point fingers. I hope nobody wants to point fingers. We don't want to look back and say shame, shame, shame. We want to look forward and say, let's rectify what we've learned and let's make the future even more productive and better. That's the way that I look at it.
So now,
I think the way the nation should look at it.
So now the two of you are more than just house guests. Your mission changes.
Yep.
I think about diet, exercise. I think about filling your day. How's that all change?
It was action-packed. I mean, there was a lot of things going on up there that, like I mentioned, there's a lot of science that was there. We were helping out the crew that was already heavily involved with what they were doing. There was maintenance that had to be done that we had the opportunity to do, both the two of us, because both of us are a little bit like the righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, like putting things together and taking things apart. And so, hey, sign us up for changing out this part of the, the urine processing system, for example. So there was a lot of stuff going on. There's exercise equipment. Yep, it was crowded, and you sort of had to, like, who's getting on, who's getting off, and like work your way into the exercise routine. But everybody knows and appreciates the fact that we all have to eat up there, we all have to exercise up there, we all have to find a place that's quiet that we can sleep up there. And the team was great. Everybody just sort of opened their arms and, hey, welcome to our crew, and then acknowledged the fact of what I was saying, like we were ready to jump in and help and do whatever we could to help out with the space station maintenance and activities.
Your mom's living in Florida, and your sister's living in Massachusetts, and your husband is in?
Sometimes Texas, sometimes Maine.
Okay, and you've got two girls in school, high school and college, and sometimes it's harder for the families than it is for you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And you have to tell them,
yep,
honey, I'm not coming home.
Yep.
Yep.
That's part of the job that we do. That's part of the results. It's not just us. Yeah, that happened with us, but it happens every single day by people that are passionate about doing their part for their country in various roles, in the military, in the police forces, and all that. This is a common occurrence. It's more visible, get it, with us, but we're in a large group of families that deal with this every single day.
And not to make light of this at all, and this comment isn't, but I heard you say, I'm wondering who's going to cut the grass now.
Yeah.
But I really think in your jobs, it's more difficult for your loved ones sometimes than it actually can be for you.
Oh, I absolutely agree with that.
In a normal situation, but this wasn't normal, Sonny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, going out to the launch pad, Butch and I were like pumped up, excited. The music's playing in the van as we're getting out there. We're excited, and I know our families were like,
we had Top Gun Maverick blaring.
So, I get it, and I fully appreciate what you say, and the part about cutting the grass it was a little euphemism, right? Just sort of a joke. Of course, we need to worry about how things are going to be taken care of. I was joking around a little bit. I didn't tell anybody really my passwords because I knew I would be back in not too long, and so I would remember them, and then I'm like, oh heck, now I better write down what my passwords are because we're gone for a little longer than expected. But all joking aside, it is much more difficult, I think, for our family and our friends on the ground who are not right in it, haven't planned and made this their life passion to go fly in space. This is not what they love or signed up for, and they have to watch us launch into space and be there and not be back for activities, for example, that we might have planned on.
I wonder when you're going to come back.
So you have to just turn it around and make it fun for the people that are on the ground. And I tried to do that by engaging as many of my family and friends with weekly updates about how this was all going to show them what life is like in space. And I think I was successful at doing that and got a lot of requests for school kids to look around the space station, and that's part of our job too, is to showcase the cool stuff that we're doing in space.
I saw a log where Sonny, I think this is your log, maybe it was NASA. The sun rises and sets 16 times, same as every other day aboard the ISS, the International Space Station. Does that get lonely?
Not lonely. I will say this.
Incredible.
We're not robots. We're not just like click a switch, everything's fine, we'll make it work. We're not like that. We're humans just like anybody else. Were there down times? Absolutely. Were there times when I shed a tear talking to my wife and my daughters? Absolutely. but we look at these as opportunities to grow. You know, trials come and we learn from them, and it will help us in the future. I've had trials in the past that helped me with this, and I realize that this is no different. And like I said, not about me, about the bigger picture, but certainly there were times, obviously, because we're not robots. You know, we have to deal with the issues as they come to life, as it comes at us, just like everybody else.
Take me to the day when you find out you're going home.
I'm glad we have an answer.
Did you believe it, or did you think I'll believe it when I see it?
We were somewhat part of the process, and having a definitive time, you can start actually. Again, we didn't make plans. I kept telling my family, I'm not back until I'm back. This is the nature of the business we do. We've had changes in the past. We may have changes now, but it was certainly a great feeling when you have a date and you're marching towards a date. Yeah.
It was really nice, I'll just say, when Crew 9 arrived. It was like, okay, we have seats, we have suits.
What I saw was a moment of elation. It was like a spring or a summer day when somebody threw open the window or the door and that warm air came running through, and you all were smiling from ear to ear.
Oh, absolutely.
Sure. You remember that day?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Huge hugs to Nick and Alex as they came across the hatch, and you know, and then it was sort of like getting everybody involved there, like, okay, welcome, welcome, and I was sort of like, I want to go in the spaceship and see the seats. I want to see our suits and see our seats, and this is the spaceship that we're going to come home in.
And plus, looking forward not just to the fact that we're coming home, we're looking forward to sharing this experience with them over the next X number of months. We didn't know at the time what that was going to be, so that's big too. What would you
like to say to President Trump and Elon Musk?
I respect you. I trust you. You've given me no reason not to trust you, either one of them. What they say, I can't say what they say. I haven't lived that. But I have no reason not to believe anything they say because they've earned my trust. And for that, I am grateful that our national leaders actually are coming in and taking part in our human spaceflight program, which we see is hugely important global significance, and they take an active role. And based on the past and what we see now, with them doing that, it's refreshing. Not just refreshing, it's empowering. It's strengthening for our nation. I think it's a good thing for our nation when the national leaders, especially something that's high visibility, are involved in the process.
Yes,
and I'm grateful for that.
And you know, I'm just glad that they're involved and they take notice. And you know, our situation, I think I've mentioned before, maybe wasn't the perfect situation, but allowed a lot of people, including the president and Elon, to look at what's going on the International Space Station, take it very seriously, and understand that our involvement as a country, as a spacefaring nation, is really important throughout the world. And it sets an example, and it shows, you know, our ability to be able to do the hard things, put people in space, operate in space, work in space, and then bring us back. It's important, and I appreciate that them and many more people took notice of it.
Let's move to the high point. You're coming home. Were you aware how many millions of people in the U.S. and around the world were hanging on your story?
I wasn't.
I wasn't.
No. No, we're focused on what our part of what we're doing. No, that wasn't.
So you're in that capsule. I think your quote was, "We're inside of a plasma ball, 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit."
Right. It's thrilling. What an e-ticket ride. You know, e-ticket's the biggest, highest ticket at the fair, right? And it's an e-ticket ride, and it's just amazing. You think about what we're doing. We're going 17,500 miles an hour, 5 miles a second. And then we use the atmosphere to slow down inside that ball of plasma at 3,000 degrees plus. And it's just a thrilling ride. And when those parachutes open, there is not a better feeling when you return from space than your parachutes operating correctly. That's a pretty thrilling moment.
I felt a great degree of national pride.
Amen, yeah.
There's few things in our country that unify us anymore. Suni, this was that day.
Oh,
Bluebird, Florida sky, dolphins in the water.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible. It was awesome. You know, Butch and I were sitting on the outside seats. Nick was sitting in the center, as well as Alex. And to have Nick just, you know, say all of the things that were happening, because he has the screens in front of him, and just dictate, all of the procedures that were happening with the spacecraft. And we're familiar, both of us have flown on shuttle and Soyuz, and so know all of the standard things that are going to happen. But to hear him say it in the spacecraft that we were in, and as we're coming home and getting ready to land, it's like, this is awesome. Here we go. We are coming back to our planet. That is incredible.
Yeah, in a spacecraft that I knew little to nothing about about the Dragon spacecraft. So we did onboard training, learned a substantial amount. But to have someone that's sitting at the helm, like Nick, qualified, passionate, cares about us, relaying that information, it was great to have him sitting in that seat. It really was.
Will you go back?
If I'm called to go back, sure, I'll go back.
Suni?
I'd go back. Absolutely. Yeah. I love being in space. Space is great. I joke around that it's a little vacation from Earth, but honestly, we have great people in our office who have been training and ready to go. I would love to hand the helm to them. I would actually love for everybody in the world to have a trip, one lap around the planet, and see the world from that perspective. I think it would change a lot of hearts and minds in a matter of seconds. It's just incredible. But honestly, I love it. I'd go back in a heartbeat.
But these other folks need to go.
They need to go.
We've got people that have been training. They're passionate as well. They need to have their go. I would never step up in front of, or even desire to go in front of all these other folks in our office and other people that are aspiring to do this. Yeah. If they ask me, it'd have to be a really dire situation for them to ask me. Certainly I'd go, but these other people need to go.
You made America proud. Welcome home.
That's super humbling.
Thank you.
It is. It is indeed.
Very humbling. Thank you.
Well, I think we love this country. And for your country to say, job well done, that's not a better comment or statement that could be made.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.